Hey, what's up guys? It's Brendan here from Addict Gaming, and today we are going to be dissecting the new reward system for dungeons, figuring out exactly why it's broken, and we'll try to come up with some solutions. So how do we know that the new reward system for the dungeons is actually broken? Well, we need to look at what it was actually intended to do, and see if it accomplishes that goal. So let's look at the reason why ArenaNet decided to put out a new reward system. Now, for the longest time, there's been a really big problem in Guild Wars 2 with risk versus reward, being compensated for the amount of time and energy you put in certain content, and this problem was probably most magnified when you looked at the dungeons. When you compared the length of the dungeons and just the overall difficulty compared to the amount of money that you would make in the dungeons, it was just all over the place. You really didn't get compensated for the amount of time that you put into this content. What this led to was a lot of the player base just farming the short dungeons and getting rewarded for that instead of spending all of their time in a lot of the other paths where they're not going to be rewarded as much. So the whole goal of this new reward system is to try to get players to go into different paths of the dungeons and experience that content while being rewarded for it. Their plan for doing this was to limit the reward for a dungeon to once a day, and they would increase the amount of money that you made at the end. How they did this was they set a value for each dungeon depending on how long or how difficult it is, and that's the goal that you will be rewarded with. So it is a system that really does force you to go into different paths if you want to get the reward. There is really no reason to go through the same path over and over again like people used to with Citadel of Flame, because they removed the coin drop from the bosses, and all of the reward is at the end. So if you do the same path again, you're not going to get that. So it is wise to do another path. But this is where we start running into problems, especially when it comes to how they valued each dungeon path. Now, if I were to show you this diagram and I said, all of these bars represent obstacle courses, and the length of the bar represents how long it will take you to get through the obstacle course, and the number at the end represents the amount of points you'll be rewarded when you get to the end. Now you can see if I told you to pick maybe 2 or 3 obstacle courses to do, there are quite a few that you'll already say that there's no way you're going to do it. The time it takes between doing it and the amount of points you're getting rewarded for is just nowhere near the others, where you can do it for a shorter time and get rewarded just the same. Or you can even go for the green one and get rewarded a lot more for investing more time. I show you this because this is my own personal experience and my own personal feelings on each dungeon, and just how I feel they balance out between the time it takes to get through and the overall difficulty of the dungeon. Now these are the actual rewards for the dungeons now. This is the value that they put on all of these dungeons. And this is where I'm quite dumbfounded. I can't wrap my head around who came up with this list, because again, from my own personal experience, to give 1 gold for a Citadel of Flame run and give the same exact value to any dungeon or any path in Crucible of Eternity, it just makes no sense at all. Now, I do have a theory as to why this list actually looks like this, but before we get into that, I just want to state that you can look at the diagram again, and it completely kills the viability of other dungeons. It backfired, and it has the complete opposite effect of what they wanted it to do. So if you look at Sorrow's Embrace or CM, which is just the awful dungeon because of the mechanics in there, or you look at COE, there's no reason to do those dungeons over doing COF, Path 1 and 2, or doing any path in AC, because you can get all of those paths done way faster than you can in the later ones and get rewarded more. Okay, so here's my theory. I actually have 2 theories. Either ArenaNet just really doesn't play its own content and doesn't understand the length it takes to go into all these dungeons and get through all of these dungeons and the challenge each one faces as you go into them. But I really don't think that's the problem. What I think the problem is that Arah as a dungeon completely screws up the curve of all of the other dungeons. Now, I think putting Arah on the same scale, the same reward scale as the other dungeons is not a good idea, because you could look at a path to COE and say, yeah, that's long and challenging, but it's nothing like Arah. So we need to bring that down to, 1 gold, or I can't even believe they brought it down that much. But I really think Arah is screwing up this whole system. Either they need to put Arah on its own reward system. Or what they need to do is they need to expand the amount of gold they give to the dungeons. So instead of 1 to 3 gold, maybe they can give out like 1 to 4 or 1 to 5 gold even, and give Arah those bigger amounts of gold in those paths so you can spread out the other dungeons more. To put all of the dungeons, I mean, it's all of the dungeons are at 1 gold except for AC that's at 1.5 gold. I can't believe that they put them all at 1 gold. They have to do something. This reward system for the dungeons is not going to work like this. They have to fix it. I suggest either putting Arah on its own reward system and give people different loot for Arah, or just expanding the reward scale from, instead of 1 to 3, making it higher, like 1 to 4 or 1 to 5. That way you can spread out the dungeons better. Anyway, guys, I want to hear what you think, so make sure you leave a comment below and tell me how you feel about the new dungeon reward system. I do think on paper it's a great idea to get people into different dungeons, but the problem is they did a bad job of it. Putting values on all the dungeons to 1 gold. Why would you make all of the dungeons the same amount of reward? That's the problem that Guild Wars 2 has been having. Why would you do that? People want different values. They want higher values on certain dungeons because either A, you can look at CM, which just has crap mechanics. It's just awful. The game CM was designed for a different game, and it's like brought into Guild Wars 2. It's just not good. And you can look at other dungeons that just take a long time, like I think it's Sarah's Embrace Path 2, or a couple of the COE dungeons take a long time. How can you give Citadel of Flame the same reward as those rewards? It doesn't make too much sense. Anyway, again, leave a comment. I wanna know what you guys think, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe. Thanks, guys.